So, okay, so the Hawaii Friends of Restorative Justice are so thrilled to have you, Mark. Talk to us, walk us through some of your exciting new work in cooperative education and creating this new platform for circles online. And do you want to just tell people
Yeah,
about yourself?
yeah, I think a little background might be good, just because maybe it isn't totally clear what's going on here for folks. So, uh, I'm at University of Oregon, as I was telling Jeannie. I've been here for about 10 years. And ever since I finished my degree at University of Minnesota, I've been really focused in my research on peer relations and how to enhance peer relations as a vehicle for doing lots of other things, for improving behavior, for improving student mental health, for improving achievement as well. So all kinds of good things can come out of enhancing peer relations, particularly these days. And luckily, I had the benefit of working with David and Roger Johnson at the University of Minnesota, which is where I got my PhD. And they've developed a really detailed approach to small group instruction that they call cooperative learning. And there's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of different aspects that should be designed in from their point of view in order to ensure the success of a lesson. And they've got a great track record of cooperative learning being a very powerful vehicle for enhancing engagement and achievement, and also reducing bias and prejudice. And so some of the work that I did was to extend that. And out of these improvements in peer relations, we get reductions in bullying and victimization, and reductions in substance use, and reductions in racial disparities in all kinds of educational outcomes, and enhancements to mental health, and enhancements to pro-social behavior, and all kinds of great things. So it's a powerful technique, but the one downside to it is that it's a very complex technique. What they present is a lot of things that need to be designed into a lesson, which is a level of complexity that maybe isn't widely appreciated. And then it can also be just a complex thing to pull off. Small group instruction, when it's done well, like a jigsaw lesson, for example, requires lots of transitions. It requires students to have individual roles, individual task lists, individual materials, and then the whole thing to be coordinated, almost like a ballet. And it takes a really, really skilled teacher to pull that off. And even the skilled ones, I mean, I've seen struggle just because students are not always paying attention to all the instructions. And maybe they miss something and they go to the wrong place, or they have the wrong materials, or there's questions and delays, and then you can't finish the lesson in time. So there's just a lot of complexity to it. And my aim coming out of my original research project was to try and make it easier for teachers, try and make things, try and make the whole process of designing and delivering cooperative lessons much easier. So I've been working for the last 2 years on a web-based technology to help teachers do that, where we have design templates for different kinds of lessons, jigsaw, peer tutoring, group projects, and teachers put their curricula into these templates, and then the lesson helps the teacher with the delivery as well. Every has a device.
Something's happening to the audio.
Yeah, your audio is not
Student
working.
has their own device, but that's becoming less of an issue these days. And so then it will have their, sorry?
We missed the last,
Can you hear me now?
last couple sentences.
Is that any better?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify that the way the technology is set up, every student should have their own device. But that's less of an issue these days as schools are investing more and more in technology. And so with that device, the student has their materials, how much time is left, what phase is next, and what phase is after that. So it's actually a very calm experience for a teacher to deliver a lesson in this way. The logistics are all managed by the technology, and the teacher can simply move around the room and listen to the conversations and help the groups that need it and things. And it was a delightful experience to pilot this back when we could still do in-person instruction. But then of course, we had the pandemic. And so since then, I've been working on modifying the technology to be done remotely so that students can participate in a real jigsaw lesson while they're at home. And having done or having tried to do this kind of thing on Zoom in the past, because I teach a lot of things at the U of O online, Zoom just doesn't cut it. It doesn't have the capabilities that it really needs for a teacher to be able to assign those individual roles and assign those materials and to monitor everything that's happening in the groups when people are working in their groups and things. So it's the technology that I'm putting together is hopefully going to make things much, much easier for teachers to do that, particularly during school closings when students are at home. And I know a lot of schools have really turned to what they call asynchronous instruction, just students learning on their own, because the synchronous instruction is just so challenging. About the best a lot of schools can do is to simply have a teacher lecture on Zoom, because there just isn't a lot of experience in doing online instruction. And the tool itself, Zoom or whether it's Google Meets or whatever, it just doesn't lend itself to small group instruction, to cooperative learning. It just doesn't have the capabilities that you need. So I've been working on piloting this and putting it in the hands of skilled teachers and having them tell me what they like and what they don't like and how it could work better. But along the way, I was exposed to a project at University of Minnesota that did a lot of restorative practices. And I became really impressed with the idea of the circles. And I thought that given the fact that I've participated in circles and things with Zoom, I felt like the same limitations still applied, that trying to do circles on Zoom is just a really, really difficult thing, trying to keep track of the order that people are in and muting and unmuting the right people and trying not to get distracted by everything in the chat window. And especially if you're going to do like a non-sequential or a non-structured circle where students are raising their hand, just really complicated kind of a thing. And so it seemed to me that if I was going to be working on technology to do remote instruction, that a good way to prepare students and teachers for that process would be to give them a really easy to use virtual circle type software as well, so that students could get used to showing up at a certain time and talking and sharing with their classmates and bonding and get develop a relationship and get a sense of excitement for joining the class. And then from there, the transition to remote instruction, like a remote jigsaw, would be a very small step. So I have pilot versions of both of these pieces of software. So again, just to be clear, there's a circle software and then there's the instructional software. And it wasn't clear to me if there was a strong interest in one or the other. And so we could do several things here. We could take a quick look at both of them, or we could take a more in-depth look maybe at just one of them. We could even do, and I've done this before for schools and teachers in Oregon, I've actually shown you the process of creating a circle, and then I put a link in the chat window for Zoom, and then we hop over into the software and we just run a circle ourselves. And so you get a sense of it from the participant side. So there's all kinds of options here. I guess it just depends on where people have the strongest interest.
I think we kind of would like to do both, if it's possible. If you could walk us through a little bit of the, maybe show us an example of the jigsaw. We could just do it. You could show us, and then also do a circle. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. I think does anybody else have any other suggestions?
Yeah, happy to entertain other ideas.
Yeah, Allison, or you guys, anything?
That's on. Your second suggestion was to do the circle, right?
Yeah, we can actually do a circle, yeah, if you'd like.
We can do both, right, though? We could do both. Can we do both?
Sure, yeah. I think. It just depends on how much time everyone has.
Do you guys have time? Got an hour, you guys? About an hour? So
an hour.
I've talked this for a long time. I think I've made this thing 2 hours, the Zoom talk right now. Why don't you just go ahead? Go ahead, we'll do the jigsaw. We'll be the students.
Okay, well, it takes a little bit of a setup to do the jigsaw. You would have to join the class and things, and to do a proper jigsaw, we would probably need more like 6 or 8 people at least, but I can show you what it looks like.
Okay.
do I have the ability to share my screen? I do
Let me
not. You have to
I'll do
make
it
me
right
a
now.
co-host. Yeah.
I'll make you co-host.
One of the things that we built into the instructional software is the ability for teachers, once they've designed their lesson and created their curriculum, is to actually simulate the instruction. So we have what we call a demo classroom that has just a bunch of fake names. So teachers can walk through the whole process from start to finish and get a feel for the software and get comfortable with the different aspects of it before they actually deliver something to students. And so I can show you a lesson with a demo classroom.
Okay, you know what? My thing is saying Zoom will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit. So
Until what's quit?
I don't know. It says will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit. You can choose to quit Zoom USA or do it on your own later. I don't know.
I don't understand that at all.
I know, me neither. I'll just try sharing it again. I mean, I just put just do share right at the bottom, Mark.
Oh, if you want me to share, then you have to
No, I
make
was
me.
going to give it to you, right? I mean, wasn't I going to share it with you? So you could.
Well, I'm going to share my screen with you so I can show you the software, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So then I don't have to do this. Okay.
Well, then because I'm not a co-host, and so I'm not allowed to share my screen.
Okay. How do I
So
make
you
the
have
co-host?
you click participants,
Okay.
and then next to my
now
name.
everybody's just in a thumbnail right now. I got to now it's just me. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I'm such a kook. Zoom kook. I just have right now, all I have is the screen at the top, the thumbnail of all 5 of us.
But did you go to the bottom of the screen?
There's nothing there. For some reason, it disappeared. Maybe I just. Oh,
Jiggle your
sorry, guys.
mouse around.
Pardon me?
Jiggle your mouse around.
Yeah, I am.
Come on.
Moving it all around, but it's not opening up anything. It just says hide thumbnail video, show active speaker video. I don't know what that is. Just some stuff on the side. I don't know how to make it big again. Now I'm gone too. Oh, man.
I've got participants and everybody's showing. I don't know why.
Oh man.
How do you make yourself mark a co-host on once you get them up?
Well, she has to be able to access the list of participants, and then she can click on me and make me a co-host. Can you see my face?
Yeah, I can see all of us are like, all I have is like a thumbnail of everyone.
Okay,
all 5 of us.
Okay, you might be able to right click on my face and then get an option to make me a co-host.
Oh, okay.
Try that.
Yeah, okay, wait, let me see. It says for you, make host. I'll make you host. Okay, so I'm changing host to you right now. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. You're great.
All right. That should work. Okay, let's see if I can. Yes, sharing my screen.
Great,
okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good.
Sorry, everyone.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to shift the Zoom window around to avoid blocking the vital parts of this. So what you're seeing here is the basic teacher's window. This is a list of all the students in the class divided into groups. Mm-hmm. This is basically the group structure, and a teacher can come in and design a group structure in advance and then save it for later and reuse it, that kind of thing. Or they can simply shuffle, do it at random. If they have a group structure that they like, but they want to tweak it, maybe, for example, Greg and Grayson don't get along, and so I'm going to swap Greg and another person. So it's very easy. It's very much click and drag. Very straightforward, and trying to make sure that it's easy for teachers to manage these groups. And so this is really, what this is a demo of I should clarify, it's a 3-person jigsaw. And so this was actually a lesson that was delivered by a teacher here in Oregon, a 7th grade botany lesson. And so there are 3 pieces to this jigsaw representing the 3 roles here: parts of plants, types of plants, and what plants need. And so every group has one of those. And this student, like Andrew, for example, is responsible for learning about parts of a plant and then teaching his group about that. Meanwhile, Will is responsible for this and Keith is responsible for this. So there's definitely an expectation that in a jigsaw lesson and in cooperative learning in general, there's expectations that are not just coming from the teacher, but also from your peers. So in order for the group to do well, I have to do well. My group is expecting me to do well. So oftentimes, at least this is my experience when piloting this, is that a student that would normally have their head down on the desk during a lecture will actually be sitting up and doing some work. And so teachers are always commenting to me, they're very pleased at the ability for this kind of approach to engage even a reluctant student because it reorients those peer expectations such that you don't want to necessarily let down your peers. That's a much more powerful motivator, especially in middle and high school. So once the groups are set, the teacher will start the lesson. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the Johnsons' work, you know that they really like to encourage lots of positive independence, incentives to collaborate, but also making sure that everybody has a role, everybody has a job, everybody has a voice, so that you have individual accountability. But they also like to build in the development of social skills during the lesson. And so that's what we do here as well. We actually have what we call a T-chart, and that's the first step in every lesson that we've developed, is for the teacher to select a certain social skill that the teacher would like to emphasize during this lesson, whether it's summarizing the group's progress, or whether it's sharing ideas, or whether it's encouraging others to collaborate, or whether it's energizing the group, as in this case, or providing leadership, or whatever. There's a chart for each one of these, and a teacher chooses the one that they want to use for this particular lesson. And then that is presented to the students, and then we actually have the teacher set a goal for the class. So I want to see, or in the case of a remote lesson, I want to hear this social skill being used by the class 5 times today during this lesson, or 10 times, or whatever the goal happens to be. So we build this explicitly into every lesson, and then the teacher moves around the room in an in-person lesson, or visits the small groups one at a time and listens for this social skill. And then the teacher may offer some kind of a reward. If the class achieves the goal, then we get to, end class 10 minutes early, or we get to, back in the day when we had in-person lectures or in-person instruction, the teacher would say, okay, then Friday can be earbuds while you study, or I've got a treat bowl, or you can leave 5 minutes for recess or early, or something like that. So there were all kinds of different ideas that teachers would put in place. But the idea here, though, is if we can make it explicit to the students what it is we're looking for, and then reward those examples that we see, and the skilled teachers would make mental notes of people that were doing a really good job of this, and then they would mention it later. So if we can notice and reward those examples, then we can really accelerate the development of the skills that will really help students thrive in small groups.
So I have a question, Mark. So,
Yep.
So each of these groups has these 3 skills that each of the 3 have to use 5 times during their session?
No, this
so
is
each
just
one.
Oh, go ahead.
So each student uses all 3?
No, these are just examples. Yeah, it's just coincidence that there's 3 people in a group, and that there's 3 examples. So these are just ways that students can use to energize the group, and the goal that's set applies to the entire class.
So yeah, what was that? So you put down 10. You entered. It said enter social goal. So that's, you already ahead of time set up your goals, and you put down the number, what one you're trying to get. Is that what you're saying?
A teacher usually reviews this social skill with the class and says, this is what I'm looking for today. I want to see all of the groups using this skill. And as a class, we are going to set a goal and try and achieve that. And if we achieve that goal, then the class will maybe get a reward or something. And then the process of picking a number is usually a negotiation.
Okay, so what is that number? What is the number you picked, though, that 10? What is that?
That's the number of times the teacher will hear an instance of this social skill during the lesson.
Okay.
During the lesson.
Yes.
And it's
So the
only one social skill.
in this case, yes, we only one at a time. We don't want to confuse the students and have 3 or 4 going on at once. We're just going to use one, and then the next time we do a lesson, we can choose a different one if we like, or the same one if they need to improve. So yeah, the goal
Does she
could be
account,
based upon. Oh, go ahead.
does she account for each student using it though, or not necessarily just hearing it used 10 times?
Exactly, hearing it used, right. And so what would often happen when we did this in person is that the teacher would move close to a group and the students would quickly pull up their T-chart and read something, and then they would make use of it in kind of a staged way to make sure the teacher heard, which from my point of view is fine, because they're realizing that these skills are important, they're using them, and then what is sort of staged now becomes natural later.
Who makes up the social goals? Or does the teacher make them up at the beginning of the class when she makes the curriculum, or he makes the curriculum, or what?
Well, the software has about a dozen of these social skills with the associated T-chart already embedded, and the teacher
Okay.
just chooses from them.
Okay.
We haven't created the ability for a teacher to edit these and create their own, but we're going to have that as an option later on.
Okay. What are some of the other examples of them, of the social goals you have?
Can I show you that in a minute? I would have to end the lesson to do that.
Yes, go ahead. Thanks.
Okay. Well, once the social skill has been presented, then the jigsaw, as we have implemented it, has a couple of steps to it. The first one we call preparation pairs, where the students start to read and process their material, begin to prepare to teach. Then we have practice pairs, where again you're meeting with a different student, but someone who has the same content, and practicing your teaching. And then you go into your jigsaw group and deliver your instruction. So the software here has automatically paired students, and I know this may be a little hard to read because the print is kind of small, but the software has automatically grouped the students according to their role. And so Brett, who is working on types of plants, is randomly paired with Will, who is also working on types of plants. And so those two together will begin to go through their material and learn about types of plants, and begin to decide how they're going to teach this to their jigsaw group later on in the lesson. The practice pairs, again, will have people grouped according to their role, but it will be someone new. So we're trying to give students lots of opportunities to work with one another, to go through the content, to understand the content, to organize their teaching. We felt like 2 steps to this would be much more beneficial than just one, to give them the best opportunity to be successful when it comes to their jigsaw group. Now, from the student point of view, this is what the teacher will see, by the way. And in a remote lesson environment, the teacher actually has the ability to join these little conversations. I should clarify that in a remote lesson, each one of these is a different voice conversation. So group 1 has their own little voice call, group 2 has their own little voice call, group 3, etc. Just so they're not interrupted. And the teacher can join those calls and listen into what the students are saying. If he or she hears an instance of that social skill, can increment the count for the class. And there's also the opportunity for the students to take notes through the software, and the teacher can view these here and see how the students are doing, and are they representing things, are they getting the main idea? And this structure for note-taking is something that the teacher creates as well, to make sure that if students need it, like younger students, they need to sort of be guided through the process of gleaning the useful information out of the materials and representing it, so that they can turn around and teach it to their group mates. So, and it's very easy, again, for the teacher to monitor what's going on. It's much more in-depth than simply just and listening in. You can actually see how students are doing. From the student point of view, there is a lot more going on as well. Rather than just being tossed into a breakout room without necessarily, oh, my internet connection is unstable. Can you still hear me?
Now we can, yeah.
Can you still hear me?
Right now, yes. Yes. Except you got frozen. Now you're frozen.
Ah, okay.
I didn't have a
Oh,
problem.
something went wrong there, huh? Yeah.
And now you're frozen.
Yeah, can't hear you if you're talking.
Nope. I wasn't. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, something, Zoom is acting up here a little bit. Actually, that's a good illustration of something that we were afraid of. We made this software just voice only. There are no video connections because we were concerned about students' bandwidth. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Concerned about students.
Concerned about students not having enough bandwidth to do video connections. We wanted to make
Oh.
sure they could hear one another during the lesson. And so this is just an audio only tool, and the circle is audio only as well.
So this
So
is
given,
what kids see.
go ahead.
You're
Yes.
showing the screen of the kids.
Right, and so the kids can review the lesson, all the information about the lesson, the learning goal, how they're going to be assessed. They can review their subtopic versus the others. They can look at their social skill, the one that the teacher is observing for today, and how they're doing with regard to that goal. They have their materials available to them. They have their note-taking template that they can type in here. And they also have a task list that's specific to their role. And again, the task list right now is built in to the Jigsaw lesson, and it isn't changeable, but we're going to make that something that the teacher can modify as well if they want to fine-tune that and be more specific. But the nice thing about, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so for this online program, that social goal had good eye contact. You don't use that for this, right? Because you don't
Right,
have
yeah, the T-charts that we originally developed, those are based upon, oh, sorry, go ahead.
they were for in-person meetings, not online.
Yes, and so we would have to, the basis for the T-chart is on one side you have examples of what it looks like, and on the other side is what it sounds like. And so obviously what it looks like isn't going to be relevant in this environment. So the T-chart will be modified to just be the part about what it sounds like. We haven't done that piece yet though.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So the students have lots of ways they can communicate with the teacher. They can indicate that they are moving through their task list and that they are done. And then, for example, this is a made-up name, Mike Biglin. And the teacher, when Mike indicates that they are done, or that he is done, the teacher can actually filter for people who have indicated that they're done and can see, for example, that Mike is done. So you don't have simply a bunch of students out in breakout rooms and being totally unclear about how they're doing. You can actually get a sense of their status. The other thing that students can do is if they are unsure of something, they can request help. And again, the teacher also sees that reflected. And so we can also filter according to who needs help. And you see Mike here now has a question mark. And so if the teacher sees something like that, they can join the group, check on their work, answer the question, listen for the social skill, and then jump back out and move to the next group. So very easy for a teacher to keep track of how everybody's doing. Much more so than, like when I would do an instruction with Zoom, I would have to have groups in my breakout rooms send me emails periodically, like how you guys do, make sure you send me an email every 5 minutes. And so I would be racing through my email trying to figure out which group was done and which group wasn't done. And I would try and dip into the meetings, but it's hard when there's 15 groups or whatever. So I mean, it was just a scramble, and couldn't really do it very well. But this is kind of.
You got frozen again.
Oh,
Zoom
okay. What did you miss?
the last sentence.
Okay. Well, I just was saying that our goal is to make the teacher's job very easy, not a scramble, not a stressful experience in Zoom. I'm really afraid that given the trouble that Zoom causes for doing really sort of engaging small group instruction that a lot of teachers will simply fall back on lecturing and do just didactic, and students are just going to, they're going to go bananas, and I think there's going to be a lot of problems. So I'm really concerned about that. And so one of the things we try to do here is make it as easy as possible for teachers to do everything that they need to do to manage a well-designed small group lesson.
Great.
Yeah, and so again, it just continues from here. There's practice pairs, and then there's the students do their jigsaw instructions, and then if they have a follow-up activity, potentially if the teacher wants to create one where they apply what they've learned, and then they go into post-group processing, which is another big thing that the Johnsons emphasize, giving students time to reflect on how they did in their groups, what they did well, how they could do better, rating themselves on their engagement and how much they learned, that kind of stuff. And then at the very end, we have celebration, where the group is directed to compliment one another in terms of things that the other people did to help them learn. So again, trying to really adhere to those concepts that the Johnsons have embedded in their work, creating peer expectations, but also offering peer rewards, focusing on the behavior that you want and not the behavior that you don't want, that kind of thing. Trying to scaffold, trying to be very explicit about everything, trying to make sure that students never have a question about what they're supposed to do or where they're supposed to be going next or where their materials are. Make it all very easy for everyone to focus on the learning and focus on the content.
Great. Nice.
Yeah. So I suppose we can switch to circles unless there are specific questions or things you'd like to see. Oh, you wanted to see the T-charts.
Yeah, is that okay? That's what the T-chart is the teacher's chart?
The T-chart is the social skill charts, and the T represents, on one side it's what it looks like, on the other side is what it sounds like for each social skill.
Okay.
That's actually a concept I got right from the Johnsons. They talk about T-charts in their materials all the time. So let me show you what those are like. So I'll launch a lesson, or I will go through the process of that. This is that study of plants lesson. And so when the teacher is starting a lesson, they have the ability to pick a specific social skill. And so you can see that there is a list here: encouraging one another to participate, checking to see if your group mates understand, sharing ideas with your group, giving direction, summarizing, offering to explain, and then more sophisticated, making connections to things you've learned previously or things that happen outside of class, extending your thinking beyond what you're seeing. How does this relate to that or something? And so each one has a T-chart. So let's look at extending your thinking. Is there another way to look at this? Let's brainstorm. Is there a different way to go about it? That kind of thing. And so each one of these skills has this chart with, again, looks like and sounds like. And so let's look at another example. How about making connections? How does this relate to the last time we did it was like this, or another example is, that kind of thing. Again, trying to scaffold, trying to be explicit about what we're looking for from the students, and trying to give them guidance and permission to engage in these kind of conversations and to support one another. Most teachers like to start out with encouraging participation, just because there's a lot, especially in middle school where I've done a lot of piloting, students can be shy, and particularly online, I think you'd find students being shy. And so they're looking for students to encourage one another to speak up. What do you think? That's an interesting idea. I see what you mean, that kind of thing. So again, trying to help them build those skills that will help their groups work better, trying to supercharge that process while they're learning their content.
Does the teacher tell the students so the teacher says at the beginning of the class, we're going to work on encourage participation today? And then
right. And so you remember when we started the lesson, the first thing we saw was the T-chart. The student has that and the teacher. And so they're all together in the same conversation, and the teacher is just leading them through the T-chart and talking about what he or she is expecting that day.
Okay. Great. Nice.
What other questions do we have?
So can the students communicate with each other in their various groups and with the other groups?
The
Do they see
students,
what everyone's doing?
the one group does not see what another group is doing. They're just within their own group. And of course, yeah, the practice pair, preparation pair, the jigsaw, when they're in their group with 1 or 2 or 3 other students, then they're in a conversation together. They're in a voice call together, but they're not aware of what the other groups are doing.
Okay.
But at the end, you can bring them all together, right? Teacher can bring them
Oh,
all
sure.
together for a whole group. Yeah.
Right at the end of the instruction, when students are done teaching one another, and if they have a follow-up activity, then they come back and they review their performance on the social skill, and so that's a whole class discussion, and the teacher can cite specific examples of students that did well, that kind of thing. But otherwise, an individual student doesn't have a whole class status board like the teacher does. We didn't even think of something like that. Do you think that would be helpful, or was that just a question?
It was just a question, unless you would need to have them all all be together at one time.
Yeah, the only time that they're actually all together is at the beginning, when they review the social skill the teacher is going to be observing for that day. And then toward the end, when they review how the class did with regards to that social skill. Other than that, they're either in their pairs learning their material, or they're in their jigsaw group teaching one another, or doing their post-lesson processing and celebration.
So, and jigsaw group that's just like a term of art for doing these kind of groups. Is that right?
Right. That refers to a situation where you have the content broken into pieces, and each student in the group is responsible for a piece. And so through that process of student teaching each other, everyone is exposed to all the content. But there's other options here too. There's a peer tutoring lesson. There's a group project type lesson where the students work together on a specific project, and then they each have a piece of a follow-up activity to make sure there's individual accountability. So there's lots of different kinds of lessons here. It isn't just a jigsaw.
In this particular jigsaw one, though, that was the first grouping that we saw with the 3. So then they're paired, and then they talk about whatever specific category they're in. Then they go back to their group of 3 and then proceed to teach what area they are. So that they don't interact with other people and other groups who are also doing the same activity ever. So for example, all the people who have types of plants of the 15 groups don't come together at all.
Not all 15 of them, no, just pairs of them.
Pairs of them.
Right, and so you are paired with somebody during your preparation pair, and then you're paired with somebody else during your practice pair. So you do get exposed to a few other students in the classroom, but yes, there's no grouping of all 15 of them, because that would just be difficult to manage, I think. Yeah. It'd be hard to tell who's doing what, and there'd be too much opportunity for students to recede into the background. Go ahead.
Sorry, can you pair them with more than just one other person? A couple sessions with maybe 2 other groups, and then have them go back?
You can, right, you can, if you want to, you can create preparation pairs that have 3 people in them. Absolutely. Okay. The other thing you can do is, if you have a student that has special needs, if you have another student, or even a specialist in the classroom, you can actually bring those 2 together. We call it mirroring the 2, and then those 2 together serve as one role in a group, and they move together throughout the lesson. So you can always ensure that those 2 will be together, and so that your special needs student is getting the support they need.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah, the other thing that we're going to do is we've taken all of the words that you're seeing, like all of the instructions and all of the buttons and things, and we've abstracted that text out, and we're going to enable that to be translated, so that students for whom English is not their first language, they'll be able to set their browser to Spanish or to Russian or to whatever. Nice. And all of the teacher's materials will be what they are, and those could be English or whatever the teacher creates, but the interface of the software will be in the student's own preferred language.
Nice.
Yeah, you can do all kinds of great things with technology. There's even opportunities down the road to actually automatically translate the teacher's materials.
Oh,
There's actually software packages you can plug in for that. And so we're hoping that to integrate something like that down the road. There's even opportunities, for example, for students who cannot hear, or sorry, who cannot see, to have the teacher's materials read to them. You know, there's all kinds of plugins and different things that we can do once we have the platform set.
and then the platform is going to be, so right now you just have a grant for it, right? You're still developing it more? And
Yeah,
then,
still fine tuning it exactly.
and what's the plan? Is the platform, are people going to have to buy it, or
Right
what?
now they can use it for free as much as they want.
Right now? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said earlier on, I don't want to have to wonder what the next steps should be. I want skilled teachers to use it and tell me
Oh,
how I can make this better,
yeah.
and what are the real benefits.
Uh-huh.
Are you being able to do some research on how it's working as you're having people use it?
I guess what you call qualitative research. I just talk to the teachers and the students when I can. We're actually going to do more of a scientific trial starting next fall, back when schools are in person, I think.
Is there any place where there's some tracking that they get results or they report? I think you were saying at the very end. So for example, how did the student do on their lesson? Is there some rubric or grade, or I hate to say grade, but some accountability score or whatever that,
Yep.
so that even in your research you could say, look, these students do improve in this, you know, this part of the lesson or whatever.
Right. Once the lesson is complete, the teacher can go into the record for that lesson and do two things, or actually three things. One is they can download all of the written materials that the students created, and they can grade those if they want. So all the note taking that students did in the software is downloadable, and the teacher can view those and save them and grade them if they like. The other thing, we have, as part of the group reflection and group processing, we have a couple of sliders where students rate their engagement and rate how much they learned and how much they enjoyed the lesson. That data can be downloaded as well into a dashboard. And so teachers can look to see if students are getting better over time, or enjoying lessons more over time, or who's enjoying it more than who. Are there students that are just not enjoying this for some reason, and what can we do about it? The other thing that is also tracked is the class performance on the social skill. Did they get 6 out of 10, or did they get 2 out of 5, or did they get 12 out of 15, or whatever it was? And you can track those over time as well.
Can you tell how
So
much
that can come back to you.
talks?
Oh, sorry, I heard two questions at once there.
Sorry. I wondered if
Go
you
ahead, Lauren.
can you tell how often a child talks, a student talks? You know, can the teacher monitor, is one student doing all the talking, or is there more, you know, cooperative sharing of the time? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of things. Yeah, there's a couple of things there. We wanted to be very careful not to open the door to that kind of social, I don't know if I would call it social dominance, or maybe microaggressions or whatever. So what we do is, when the students are put in their pairs, or when they're put in their jigsaw group, in addition to getting all their materials and all their tasks, we also specify the order in which they talk, and that's randomized.
Okay.
So this person is the first reader, that person is the second reader, the third reader, and then in their jigsaw groups, this is the first teacher, this is the second teacher. And so students know exactly who goes first and exactly who goes next, and we try and remove any tendency that students might have to either not contribute and recede, or to get up front and take over. We're trying to make sure that everything is as equal as possible, and that no students are minimized at the expense of others. The other thing that we do is, just to make sure that the teacher has an audit trail, is that we're recording all of those small group conversations. And so if there is something that the teacher would like to follow up on, or if the teacher just wants to review all of the conversations and and make sure that things are happening the way they're supposed to, they can again go and listen to those after the lesson as part of that lesson record.
Oh,
That's really good that you have a way of tracking who's talking and telling them what order they're going to be speaking in. I can see that really helping to smooth things out there.
Yeah, well, the Johnsons are famous for that. They love to do that in their workshops. They'll put you in groups and they'll say, okay, the first person to talk is the one with the brown shoes or something, or the one with the earliest birthday in the year, or the longest hair, or they'll come up with some, strange, crazy, funny thing. And usually it'll be a fun thing too, that'll get people talking, like the one who has the most siblings. And so people say, oh, how many brothers and sisters? And so it'll be a way for people to get to know one another, while they're figuring out who goes first. So, they're the masters, and this is just me trying to represent what they do in some small way.
did you have a question too, Jeannie?
Oh, earlier, I was just before when we're talking about assessments they were doing, I was thinking Mark can take all that. You could ask them, or do they then, send it back to you, so then you could do your own research on how the program's working, or you just
Exactly. No, we're going to do like I said, starting next fall, we're going to do more formal research into just the software. I did a lot of research doing cooperative learning the old-fashioned way, and I actually hired the Johnsons on my project to come and train teachers. And that's where I got all of this, firsthand experience watching teachers do this in classrooms, and watching them have their successes, and watching them do things not so well sometimes. And so that's when it really came to me that, gosh, if we could only make this more scalable and give teachers more support, I think more people would do it, and they would do it more often. Mm-hmm. And that's really where the benefit comes in, is when you get that greater dosage, students working together more often.
Then after the students do the lesson, do they take is there some kind of a test, or, you know what I mean? Do they have to show their knowledge that they learned the stuff?
Yeah, ideally the teacher would have an assessment set up for them, so that they would, feel accountable for learning. That would happen outside the software right now. Okay. There's other tools that teachers can use for review, like the flashcard tools or the quiz tools or whatever. And so we didn't necessarily want to build our own version of that. Uh-huh. Maybe down the road we'll be able to sort of integrate with some of those things, uh-huh, so that we can have sort of a continuum, and it's a little more seamless. But that's in the future. We wanted to focus our resources on doing things that nobody's doing right now, rather than trying to replicate something that someone else is already doing.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
Did you say that there's a way to count the number of social skills that each student receives or practices?
The count is at the classroom level. So the way the Johnsons do it, and I agree, is they want to encourage the class to all feel like they're working together toward a goal. And so they set a goal for the class, and that they every time the teacher hears a student doing that, the teacher will increment a count, and then that count represents the class's count. And otherwise, it may get into an issue of fairness. For example, if each student has a goal, and a teacher just doesn't happen to hear that student during a lesson, the student gets a 0 and they get upset and things. So I think a classroom goal is more doable for a teacher in a typical environment. And it also is a good way to encourage the class to think of themselves as a unit and as a team.
We do that. We do a working on what works. It's called WOW. It's a solution-focused approach, and it's like that. It's a goal. The class though makes up their own goals. They're not driven by the teacher. The teacher, it's the class makes them up. But,
right. Well, yeah. In this case, like I said, the setting of that class goal is a negotiation, and so I would definitely expect the teacher to give the class input into that, and hopefully the teacher will down the road have the ability to tweak those T-charts and social skills and add their own ideas. So if the class has a great idea for something they think they're good at, the teacher can go in and put it into the software and then observe for it.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, that's the future.
Yeah.
One of those things that teachers have told me that they want, and so the more I get this in teachers' hands, the more I get great ideas like that for things that would help them do their job better.
And the randomization processes you were talking about, so that one student doesn't get to talk over another one, or other ways of doing
The order. Mm-hmm.
or the order. Is there just a button you push or something, or the teacher has to work that out themselves? They can just say randomize and then it all gets done so that they don't have to, you know, think of all 15 groups and
Mhm.
who's
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
what.
Well, when it comes to setting those jigsaw groups initially, a teacher, and in fact, I could show this to you. There's a couple of different ways that the teacher can set those groups up. One is completely at random. The teacher may have a preset group configuration that they want to use. They may want to randomize their groups, or they may want to create them deliberately. And I can show you how that works. So that's where the teacher may have a pre-specified idea of the way they want the groups to look. Maybe I've had a situation where a teacher says, gosh, we've had our little desk clusters all year. Could I run my first lesson using that specific setup? And so, yeah, sure, it's easy to mimic that. And so here's all of the students on the right-hand side, unassigned, and the teacher can sort of create her groups very planfully in a number of different ways, can click and drag names into specific groups, can pull up a list of all the students in the class and just pick the ones that they want for this group. Can drag people, swap people, can mirror people if there's a special needs student, or simply just shuffle and get everybody in groups at random. And so there's lots of different ways to do that. And once a group configuration is set, the teacher can save it and use it later. When it comes to the pairings for the preparation pair and the practice pair, that's totally at random. And that's something that the teacher can see before it actually happens. And so if the class is working, for example, on one phase, the teacher can look ahead to the next phase and see what those random pairings will be, and then swap them if they don't like them necessarily, and then let the lesson move ahead. But then when it comes to within the pairs or within the jigsaw group, the assignment of who goes first, that's just totally random. The system just does that automatically. The teacher doesn't have to interfere in that because there's only 2 or 3 or 4 people. It's not critical necessarily who goes first, unless it happens to be with the peer instruction, you want the lessons to go in a certain order. And so then the teaching would go in that order. And so the teacher can specify that if they want to. But otherwise, the order in which students go is totally random.
Good.
Great. Do you want to, should we do the circle now? Show us the circle,
Sure.
Yeah.
unless there's more questions. Do you guys have questions?
So again, I want to get this in the hands of skilled teachers, and it doesn't have to be middle school or high school. It could be elementary, I think, as well. I haven't done elementary yet, but late elementary students, I think, could handle this. I think they would be comfortable with that. College, I actually am going to be working with someone at University of Oregon to use this with one of her undergraduate classes that she's teaching online. So I think that could work as well. So I'm open to ideas, whatever ways people would like to try this. So circles, go ahead. Was there a question?
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Quite cool. Yeah.
So I think everyone has my email address from the invitation, the Zoom invitation. So please get in touch. So again, the circles is something that I was exposed to as part of a restorative justice project at University of Oregon, and I was really intrigued with the idea. Thought it was a good thing that to help teachers do this a little more easily during remote learning, and I thought it would be a good stepping stone into the full-time, online instruction. I think diving into that may be a bit intimidating for students and maybe for teachers as well. But running circles, I think, maybe would be a good way to again get people comfortable coming together online, and then the step from there to the online instruction isn't quite as dramatic. So let me create a new circle, and then we can actually log off of Zoom and jump right into that. So I'll say demo 9/23/2020. Excuse me. So here's the link to join the circle. And I'll post that in the chat window here in a second. But let me show you what this looks like from the host point of view. And then you can all log in as participants and we can go from there. So again, this is audio only. There's no video. We're actually really emphasizing the circle structure, giving people a sense of being around the circle together. When you join in, you'll be represented around the circle here, around this light blue line. You have the ability to upload an image of yourself if you want to personalize your experience. That's something that you do down here in the lower right-hand corner. You have the ability to upload your own, a photo, for example. And as a host, I manage a couple of different things. One thing I would manage is the discussion prompt. So I can put in a prompt that I want to distribute to the folks in the circle. I also have a bulletin board, which is a separate tab over here. If I want to take notes about things that are discussed or decisions that are made by the circle. And again, those are also shared with everybody. Everybody has access to that.
Does that show up on the screen, or do you have to go to a separate screen to see it?
No, your screen as a participant will look a lot like this. You'll have the circle here with the people around it, and then you'll have in the upper right-hand corner, you'll have the ability to look at your discussion prompts and your bulletin board. It all is in the same place. Yeah, and your icon down here is in the same place. That's where you can upload your image, and that's where you go to log out when the circle is completed.
Before the circle starts, can you get the pictures of the people? You know, I'm just thinking if I, you know, tried to use this for real and had some people I knew that were going to come to it, because when I did it, I wouldn't want it. Like, I mean, could I prepare for that? You know, you put a picture up for them?
Have them show up with a picture, because they do it. You don't do it for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So each person brings their own picture and does it.
Has it handy. Yeah, exactly.
And it's on the computer, but you just don't have video.
You're right, exactly. This is just audio with images, with still images. Yeah, no video. Again, just for the reasons of the bandwidth and privacy and all the other things that people are concerned about these days.
I think some people feel more comfortable with just a picture.
That's what we've heard. Yeah, that's what we've heard, is that people who are a little shyer are more comfortable in this environment, not having their face up on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least not a video of their face. So there's two kinds of circles, and we can try them both. One is sequential, where the talking piece just walks around the circle in a clockwise fashion. And the other is non-sequential. And if I choose to do a non-sequential circle, you will see an icon in the lower left that will allow you to raise your hand. And then the software keeps track of the order. And then the talking piece just gets passed around according to that order. So as it is, as a participant, you don't have to actually do anything, except when it's your turn, the software will ask you if you want to pick up the stick or take the talking piece and speak, and then you can do that. Or you can simply use an emoji if you want to express yourself without talking. So you'll see that when you have the chance to log in.
Can you make it without the talking piece? Because we don't use the talking piece in our circles.
Well, how do you keep track of whose turn it is? Or do you not have turns? Everyone just talking at once kind of thing?
You go around in order. People see you go around in order, usually.
Okay. Well, there isn't actually a piece. There's not an object. It's just a matter of saying, yes, I want to talk, and then I'm done. That's basically it. It's just sort of we talk about the stick or the talking piece just as a representation of how it's working. There isn't actually a physical stick that we need to pass around or anything. Right. So I think it may be better to just jump into it and run a circle.
Great.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I will put that link into the chat window. And then should we leave the Zoom in place, or should we just close it and move over to the circle?
Are there it's going to be two different things then? So after the circle is closed, then we would have to come back to the Zoom to talk? Or we talk about things while we're in the circle?
I would prefer that, yeah. Just close the Zoom so it's not competing for bandwidth.
Okay. Okay, so, and then now I clicked on the thing that you sent and it took me, so I sign in with Google, or do I sign in as a guest?
If you have a Google login, that's easier because it
Okay.
takes your name from that.
Okay,
So
and then
I'll leave the Zoom open while people are logging in, just to
Okay.
make sure everybody can get in.
Okay.
And there's no questions about that.
Okay, great. And then you can shut it down when because you're the owner of it. You're the host. Okay.
I'm the circle host, yes.
Yeah.
I can see Lisa has gotten in.
Okay.
Oops. The wrong name. Hold on.
And you'll see an opportunity to join the circle. You have to click on that to join, and then when you are added to the circle, you are muted because the host at the beginning technically has the talking piece, so to speak. I have the floor, but then I pass it along to others around the circle. Okay, who just joined? Let's see. Ron Walker is part of this now. Let's see. Waiting for 2 more, I guess, right? Oh, there's someone. Jeannie's in.
I see circles.
Allison, did you get in?
I'm trying to, somehow I seem to have several different programs running at the same time, so I'm trying to get out of the additional one, so it's just one. Okay.
This is a great program, Mark.
If you have an image of yourself, feel free to upload that while we're waiting. Again, it's just that icon in the lower right corner.
Oh, okay. And just upload a picture if I want.
Yeah, do you see it?
Yeah, I see it. Okay. So look for a picture. Oh, here's one of me skateboarding.
Awesome.
Whoops. Yeah, I'll put that in. This is Mina. Okay. Yeah, which was the first one I saw, so grabbed it.
I don't have photos of myself.
How are things going, Dallison?
It's having me sign in with Google now.
Right. Yeah, that's the easiest. That so you don't have to type in your name and things. That's usually the easiest way to do things.
I have so many Google accounts, like 5.
Well, while we're waiting, maybe I can also clarify that you should see my face in the middle of the circle, since I technically have the talking piece. But you should also see a set of emojis within the circle as well, and you can use those to respond to whoever has the talking piece. You can use that to support them or indicate that you hear them, acknowledge them, you understand. Exactly, I can see somebody doing it already. Lisa just gave me a digital hug, and yeah, I think it was an applause that I got as well. Okay, I think everybody's in, so I'm going to close the Zoom window, and we'll just transition to the circle.